Hello, this is my YouTube channel. Welcome back. It is November 22nd, 2021. Okay, I'm going to spend a brief video here on basically how to time travel a bit. I'm going to discuss it a little bit. I'm not going to go into too much detail, even though I could. So I'll just be very brief, so this way you get some general ideas here. I'm going to also talk about my conversation with Darren in February of 2008, and that's going to be the main focus of this discussion. Is that video? I mean, not that video. Is that discussion I had with Darren? And I'll avoid using your full name, but it was with my date in February of 2008 that I predicted the future and/or time traveled. So anyway. I'll show other ways that I was prophetic and ways of. I'm going to reflect on this conversation right now that I had with her in February of 2008 in downtown Manhattan. That was near downtown because we were around a few blocks away from a PATH station back to New Jersey. So that would then make us kind of near the downtown area, give or take. So anyway, I had said to her that when I predicted the future with her, I told her that, the Dow will drop, quite a bit, if not a couple thousand points in the fall of 2008, and I was right about that. And then I also said to her afterwards that after that there'll be inflation, and then a decade after that there'll be something much worse. Well, if you look at it like this, a decade after the inflation came at, you could interpret, or you could analyze this and say that the inflation came at one of two times. It came in 2008 to 2009 with the food price inflation that occurred then. Commodities of food increased in price then, of course, or it could have occurred. It also might have occurred, you could say, in with stock equities increasing in 2010 with the start of QE1 in 2010. So equity inflation occurred then. And then if you go 10 years after those two events, give or take, you end up in 2019 and or 2020, which is COVID basically. And that's something that's much worse. As I told her, there'd be something much worse happening after the inflation. So anyway, that's one way of looking at it. Now I'd like to say that I'm also going to add to my delivery on these videos. Some people have commented my delivery is not so good, and that's because, well, my head's they usually turn up the microwaves when I'm giving these videos, or I'm being microwaved in my room and I'm discussing them in my room. So anyway, we'll just get off that topic. But that's one of the reasons why my delivery is so poor. So anyway, I discussed that in a previous video. So we'll get back on topic here. One way of looking at time travel is that it's not really like time travel. It's more like being prophetic is what it really comes down to, because unfortunately I don't believe you can go back in time on this timeline because it's a linear timeline. But there is a way to predict the future, and it's been done by many people. And so the ways in which sorcery, if one conducts sorcery, how you predict the future is that you use sorcery to basically gain control of a demon. And so that's what occurred that night with Darren, is that we had control over it because we conducted a ritual. And so the ritual occurred because of death that occurred along precise guidelines, using basically sacred numbers to kill people with, that were attached to me, led to me having power, so to say. And then also love too as well, because I mentioned to Darren that it takes the masculine and the feminine. Masculine and the feminine, has to do with Baphomet. Baphomet's androgynous, so is the Statue of Liberty in New York. Statue of Liberty is like Sol Invictus or Lucifer in disguise, but it's androgynous too as well. And I told Darren sometimes it takes the masculine and the feminine, and it's like me and her are the masculine and the feminine components of the ritual that occurred in February of 2008. So it's that's one way of looking at it. So our time travel was kind of like a version of it involved death, because the death that surrounded me that was linked to me, and then also it involved love, because the love I had for her, even though I wanted kind of like a follow-up date with her because she has some peculiarities about her and some issues with her where she extracts negative energy. So Darren also might have been a witch at the time too as well, because she kind of extracts negative energy from people. It's a long story, and I have analyzed this conversation on my computer. I pulled the videos from my YouTube channel. I don't have them there anymore, but I analyzed these my conversation with her in February of 2008, of which I also want access to this conversation. People used to give me this conversation back to me and reflect it back to me as a form of harassment immediately after it happened, and I kind of want access to the whole conversation, but I at least have most of it in my head to where I can access the conversation at any given time, because it's something that I remember and it's in my long-term memory. And so anyway, I'm just going to give away the whole, witch and or, let's call it the real witch and or the real warlock wizard type cookbook, let's call it. Spirit cookbook and or sorcery book of how to time travel. How does one time travel? Okay, I will because I discussed with you one aspect of it, of how I time traveled in Manhattan. It's not an exact science and it's not a precise way of doing it, but this is how many have done it, and how it was done in antiquity too, as well as along similar guidelines. I'm just going to kind of give it all away here, and I think some people already know this and understand that how these work. But time travel can either be done through ritualistic death using numerology, Pythagorean and Chaldean numerology linked to the person who is the target. The target will then gain power from that death, and they can sometimes grab hold of a demon afterwards to time travel. You can also time travel through fear, which you'll see in many movies. You'll see fear and or death linked to the payphone concept, which I've discussed in previous videos, and or copper. Copper represents something, the payphone's also made out of, the lines of the payphone are made out of copper, not fiber optic. So it's also has, you have copper in the phone as well. And you'll see this in a lot of movies played again and again and again. I mean, even a movie I saw recently, Stargate Continuum from 2008, has copper in it, in which they're basically, when they're discussing how they time travel, how the Goa'uld and how the other people were going to time travel, they said, well, we're going to, they go into this copper. It has literally copper all around it. It's some sort of chamber that has the copper color on it, and the copper color has to do with basically what occurred during the Copper Age of humanity, which is where you had with these Bacchus cults in a combination of Rome and Greece, mostly Rome, in which you had basically Maenads and or these witches, we'll call them Maenads because that's the proper name for them, would go into a trance and ritualistically kill people, and they might have learned forms of sorcery from doing that back in antiquity and late antiquity. And they do the same thing now. It was kept quiet for a while. And so anyway, so that's that. And some might ask, hey, is there any other way to time travel besides, death, fear, or love, or in a combination of those combined to time travel with? Because you could time travel with death, love, fear, or whatever, and so some might ask, hey, is there a way to time travel that doesn't use death, fear, love, or some combination of macabre things? And I would say no. And guess what? You're going to get either severely whipped or beaten if you even think so. Ha ha ha. No, I'm just joking. No, but seriously, you can't time travel in the sense of that you can't, like I was saying before, you can't go back in time because this timeline is linear here. But as I discussed in previous videos, time will come to an end here eventually, because this place has limits to its time, and it has certain rules governing how time works here, and or certain infrastructure put in place that will come undone, such as the magnetic field will eventually come undone here. So anyway, that's it for now, and I'm going to, I guess, cut this video off, and I hope you all have a good day. All right, take care. Thank you.